Splatoon 2 is the big summer game to come out for Nintendo Switch. If you are picking up this game without having played the original game on the Wii U, then you are at a disadvantage because you're going to get people like myself that did play the original game. I put in 200 hours into the original game. You are going to be coming up against people that are experienced with the Splatoon IP, that know the mechanics of the game. So what we'll be doing in this video is giving some tips on how to get better at the game, some game modes to play to learn the mechanics of the game before jumping into the multiplayer, and also I'll just be telling you what Splatoon is. So let's just get on with it. So what on earth is Splatoon? Well, Splatoon is a third-person shooter from Nintendo, but it's a third-person shooter with a twist. Instead of shooting bullets, you are shooting ink. You will be playing as the Inklings who can shoot ink, but also you can turn into a squid, and when you are in squid form, it will provide you with much better movement when you are swimming in your own team's ink. And what's interesting, when you do press the ZL button, it also works as a reload button as well. So Nintendo have combined the sprint and reload button. Like before in other shooters they would be two separate buttons, but in Splatoon they have been combined into one single button. So when you are in squid form, you will move much better, much faster than in inkling form. But in order for you to move around, then you will need to shoot ink on the floor so you can swim around in squid form. So you will have to be in inkling form, and when you are coming up against other people, you will need to be in inkling form, otherwise the opposition will just shoot you down pretty easily. They will just see you swimming around in the ink as a squid, so it is important to have a balance between the two. So the main game mode that you will be playing to start off with when you do start the multiplayer will be Turf War. And the main point of Turf War, the main objective of Turf War, is to put down as much of your team's ink as possible, and whoever has got more ink at the end of the match will win. So that is the game mode that you will be starting off with when you are playing multiplayer. But before you get into Turf War, I've got some little tips to start off with before you do go into the multiplayer. So my first tip, if you've got other friends who have a Switch and Splatoon 2, then my advice is to get together, play Turf War, play all of the multiplayer modes offline, because then you will be able to learn mechanics with people with similar skill level if they haven't played Splatoon before. But in order to play local multiplayer, then each individual person will need to own a Switch and a copy of the game. So maybe you will not be able to do local multiplayer. Unfortunately, there is no split screen multiplayer that have two players on the TV screen. Unfortunately, you cannot do that with Splatoon 2 on the Switch, which is a massive shame. So if you cannot do local multiplayer, then my next tip will definitely help you out. And my next tip is to go and play the single player, just because the first few levels of the single player, and a single player in general, I guess, will teach you the basic mechanics of the game, and it will get you up to grips with the mechanics. It will help you to feel comfortable with the mechanics without actually playing against people that are experienced with the game. Just because it is quite overwhelming going into this brand new IP, especially if you haven't played Splatoon before. It is quite overwhelming to just suddenly go into Turf War and come up against people that know what they're doing, especially if you are struggling to get to grips with the controls. So I guess my best advice for you is to play local multiplayer with your friends, or play the single player. The single player will definitely help you out. The main purpose of the single player, like the devs have already confirmed this with the original game, and they said this with the single player for Splatoon 2 as well. The main purpose of it is to get, is for you to get to grips with the controls of the game and the basic mechanics of the game. So yeah, I definitely would suggest for you to play the single player. One more thing I forgot to mention is that you will need to get used to the mouse controls. Don't turn off the mouse controls, because motion gyro is the way to go with Splatoon. If you turn it off, then you are at a disadvantage to people like myself that have mastered the gyro. Gyro is such a massive advantage over the dual analogs. So playing a single player, get used to the most controls, get used to the gyro. That is definitely the way to go before jumping into the multiplayer. It's definitely the way to go before turning off gyro completely. I definitely would suggest for you to try out the single player if you are a new player first before jumping into the multiplayer. Once you feel comfortable with the controls of the game and the mechanics of the game, then go and play Turf War and try out all of the weapons and see which one best suits you. If you played the single player, then maybe you've already got a favourite weapon, and who knows, maybe it's already unlocked for you in the multiplayer. But if it isn't, try out all of the weapons that are available to you to start off with. I think the Splatshot Junior is the first weapon, and basically you will need to level up to be able to buy new weapons. So try and level up as best as you can and try and get access to a wide variety of weapons and see which weapon suits your playstyle. If you like to ink lots of turf, then maybe the roller is the best weapon for you. But a tip for the roller, press the ZR button to put down a lot of ink. But when you are coming up against people, just quickly tap the ZR button. Don't hold it down, because when you do hold it down, then you will just be an easy target for people. When you do quickly press the ZR button, you will fling a lot of ink, and if there is somebody quite far distance, then press the jump button and ZR at the same time, and then you will produce a vertical fling. But the horizontal fling is really strong up close. It can be a one-shot fling to start off with. So when you are coming up against people, quickly press the ZR button, and then it will give you a horizontal fling. And if you want to do a vertical fling, like I said, press the jump button. But maybe you are somebody that likes to get up and personal with the opposition, and maybe you will be best suited to a weapon like the Splat Jewel is, or the Splatshot Junior, or the Aero Spray. Or maybe you like to take out people from afar. If you are one of these people that are suited to a sniper weapon in other shooters, then the Charger is definitely the best weapon class to go for. And speaking of the weapons, it is important to know what map combinations are best suited for each weapons. So different maps will be suited to better weapons. So for Murray Towers, for example, that is sort of like a long range map, so the Charger might be best suited for you, or something that will give you range like the Heavy Splatling. Or if you like mid-range battles, that mid-range battles will happen quite a bit, so maybe, I guess it depends on how you play on the map. But if you are somebody that likes to sit quite far off, likes to have mid-range battles, then maybe the Splatshot Pro will be the best sort of weapon to use in that situation. But you've got two maps to think of as well, and that's why I say that it's important to think of weapons for the different map combinations. So if you see something like Ink Blot Academy and the Reef, they are two very short range maps, so I'll definitely go with something that is best suited to short range battles, like the Aerospray, like the Splat Jewel is, or even the Tentacake Splattershot or the Splattershot, something along those lines. Or maybe even the Roller, something which you can use up close. And when you are flinging it ink up close, it is really powerful. So it is important to learn the maps, know what weapons best work on each map, and like I said in my previous point, it's important to match the weapons with your playstyle. So if you are somebody that likes to sit afar, pick people off from afar, then definitely go with something like the Charger or the Heavy Splatling. Now in Splatoon 2 you can pick up different pieces of gear, and these gears, so you got headgear, you got clothing, you got footwear. These different pieces of clothing have abilities attached to them. These are known as gear abilities. My next tip for you is that it is important to pick gear abilities that will improve your setup. So if you do feel like you are running out of ink all of the time when you are shooting your main weapon, maybe like the aero spray, then pick the ink saver main, just because that will save you quite a bit of ink. It will mean that you are not running out of ink all of the time when you are shooting that aero spray. If you do feel like when you are using something else, like maybe the heavy splatling, and maybe it takes a while to recover ink, then go for the ink recovery gear ability. Or maybe you feel like your sub weapon isn't really that powerful, pick the sub and power up gear abilities. So if you feel like your setup needs improving, like what I said, if you feel like you are running out of ink all of the time when you are using your sub weapon, for example, then you can use the sub saver gear ability. Or if you do feel like you are running out of ink when shooting your main weapon quite a lot, then go for the ink saver main. So it is important to pick the right gear abilities for your setup. So try and play with your setup, see what needs improving, and if you feel like, yeah, I need something to stop me from running out of ink all of the time, then go for the ink saver main or the sub saver gear abilities. And my last tip for you is that practice makes perfect. Once you put a bit of time into turf war, then you will start to get a grasp of the mechanics, and you will learn what each weapon can and can't do. So for example, the aero spray, it is great for short range battles, but it's not really that good for mid range battles. You will start to learn these little details the longer you play the game. So practice definitely makes perfect. You will definitely get better the more time you put into the game, and that is how I got better with the game. It's just putting more time into it. So yeah, hopefully these little tips will help you out a little bit when you are playing Splatoon for the first time. This is probably new for a lot of people. I'm sure quite a lot of you guys didn't pick up a Wii U, so therefore you didn't play Splatoon 1. So yeah, hopefully this beginner's guide has helped you out a bit, and hopefully it will turn you in from a inkling noob to an inkling professional. So yeah, that is it for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Splatoon 2. Are you struggling to get to grips with the game? If you are, try out some of my tips and hopefully it will help you out. So yeah, that's it for this video, and I will see you next time.